Alright, this is a video, more like a speech, a sermon on 3i Atlas. There's the URL up there at the top. This is the guy who puts it out, or thing that puts it out. You never see his face. You don't know if it's a person. It could well be an AI created story. It goes into detail about how he believes that the 3i Atlas has come to offer a genetic modification savior to humanity, and that they're going to show up over cities, much like the ABC series with Marina Baccarin, where the spaceships show up over cities and start demonstrating that, that they're superior. And don't know if this person is a scientist or not. 3i Atlas is real. It's an interstellar object. It's definitely not a comet. It maneuvers. It has 10,000 objects in unison following it, either following it or pushing it. It is about 7 miles wide, 33 billion tons. It doesn't behave like any comet. Allegedly, SpaceX sent a mission, a secret mission with a probe satellite probe package packed into a Dragon capsule, and when it got close, it just went offline, never to be heard from again. They claim they saw structures on the surface. At this point, which is October 24th, 3i Atlas is currently behind the sun. No one knows exactly what it's doing, but as Avi Loeb said, it could be there to slingshot around the sun and come at the Earth. If you look at the current orbital mechanics, the sun is blocking, and the glare is blocking, seeing 3i Atlas back there. The next time we see it, it would be coming straight at Earth. Not that it's going to collide with Earth. I don't think they would aim to do that. They would just do a flyby with a huge 33 billion ton, 7 mile wide ship. It would cause huge tidal effects, probably tidal waves. It would destabilize the crust of the Earth enough to trigger volcanic eruptions. If supervolcanoes were triggered, like Yellowstone, that would be a huge eruption because it's already tight and ready to blow. Then there would be a huge nuclear winter cloud probably circling at least the northern hemisphere. There would be serious disruptions in any kind of shipping or supply chain, anything. And it could basically destroy civilization without firing anything at the Earth. But if that's not bad enough, that structure, that device, is covered with a CO2 coma that is very large, millions of kilometers, and is spewing hydrogen cyanide. Seems to have the ability to turn its tail forward and spray like an aerosol can. So if it did that to the Earth, coming between, say, the moon and the Earth, that would not be good. It would poison the atmosphere by making the air oxygen poor, killing many people in that manner. And then the hydrogen cyanide, depending on its concentration, would further kill many people and animals above ground. Those that are below ground and living beneath the oceans would be fine. And then the CO2 would be absorbed by the trees, the hydrogen cyanide would dissipate, and the Earth would be available again for rehabilitation. So just a few minutes of this guy. He's a, sleepy, slow-talking dickhead. People post stuff like this, and this is his description. The guy seems to think that they're coming here to help us. I don't think so.
Personal success and individual advancement is unlikely to suddenly become focused on collective well-being just because they gain access to expanded capabilities. This means that consciousness evolution selection will necessarily be limited to people who have already demonstrated psychological readiness for enhanced capabilities, rather than being offered universally to everyone regardless of their ethical development or psychological preparation. The Atlas Intelligence describes this as merit-based transformation, where access to consciousness evolution depends on demonstrated readiness rather than random selection or social position.
And this is an hour and 28 minutes in. He's basically saying they're going to cull the herd. Because you can't offer increase something to certain people and have the rest of them just stay there and keep reproducing. Because that's what they would do. Let's back up. He claims this information is from leaked NASA documents. So I have no idea where this is. This guy uses maybe 20 words in a sentence that could be taken with 5. What he could say with 5 words, he goes on and on with 15, 20 words.
False information for purposes I don't understand. But here's what I can tell you. The level of detail and consistency in the communications I've seen far exceeds what I would expect from hoax materials. The scientific and technological specifications are precise and internally consistent. The psychological and sociological projections align with established research in those fields. More importantly, many of the predictions made in the early communications have already started coming true. The shift in official government position on UAPs, the release of military footage showing advanced craft.
So he's talking about the NASA leaked documents. Now you're going to waste 2 hours of your time, 2 hours, 22 minutes of your time. Go watch this yourself. But the real story is that 3i Atlas is currently behind the sun. Apparently it has managed to tune the sun so that it can make the sun pulse on demand. Now, a strong enough pulse, which is an electromagnetic pulse, would in essence wipe out modern civilization on Earth. Everything would stop working, pretty much. Everything that relies on computers that's not hardened would stop working. Even that's hardened wouldn't work for long. There would be no more fuel being drilled for, pumped, distributed, because all that relies on computers. Computers that are not hardened. And we would have mass chaos here. And people keep saying, why won't they tell us? Why won't they show us? Why won't they tell us? Well, that's why. There'd be a mass panic. Only vehicles that are very, very old, that don't have computers controlling them, would still run. The old points and condenser technology for diesels, the old mechanical injection systems. And it doesn't matter because it wouldn't be fuel for very long, except for diesel could run on a whole lot of things. It could run on, vegetable oil, old motor oil, old gasoline. Anything that basically will burn. May not run well, but it will run. Anything that someone else has that somebody has lost, they'll steal it. They'll try and steal it from you. That's human nature. So 3i Atlas represents a pretty dangerous thing. It's not a curiosity anymore. It has timed itself to arrive here, and it's now behind the sun. I would be surprised if it just comes out and keeps on going. But there were 10,000 objects behind it. There were 17 other comets that came into the solar system from completely somewhere else. There's R2 Swan that came in completely from somewhere else. And he says in this video, if you want to go listen to the whole thing, there are extraterrestrial species out there that don't like us, that want to destroy Earth, Earthlings, humans, because they want to take the Earth. Well, that's obvious. There's not many Earth-like planets out there, if any, that are available. And I'm sorry, but humans are primate based. The brains, they have the monkey brains with a little bit of intellect sprinkled in. The old story comes from the Anunnaki. I would encourage you to look up the YouTube channel, The Y Files. The Y Files, THEWHYFILES. And just go through a lot of his videos, because they're true documentaries. And they document much of what he's saying here the aliens are offering. People like this don't help, because he's an idiot. He talks about it in terms of scientific excitement. He talks about it in terms that, extraterrestrials are coming to help us. Why would you help a cockroach? Why would you help something that is of such little value and is such immense problem? You would just exterminate it. Human beings have made such a mess of everything that we're doing, we don't see it. We bumble around. Let's try this. Let's reverse engineer that. We don't know what we're doing. Oh, let's try that. And everything that's happened in the last 100 years or so that we call technological advancement has basically come from elsewhere. Humans didn't figure it out. They got a help launch from one source. And that's the truth. Okay, here's the Skylive.com animation pictorial of where 3i Atlas is in relation to the Earth on October 26, 2025. You can see it, 3i Atlas right there is below 2025, and below the number 52 you can see the sun, and then off to the right the little blue dot is the Earth. So that's what they mean by it's behind the sun and we can't see it. Now this trajectory from the sky live, which is this website, you can find by going to type in Google search 3i/Atlas, and then the word animation behind it. You scroll through the results, you'll come up to this link to theskylive.com. Now, there's a line you can barely see. It's a projected trajectory of 3i Atlas, and you have to remember, everything is in motion. So this is simply a snapshot of where things are right now, today. Now let's go get one from a month into the future. Here is November 26th, a month ahead. You can see things have moved. There's the Earth a little bit. Everything goes counterclockwise. So there's the Earth a little bit above the sun, because this is a pictorial looking theoretically down on the solar system from the top. The Earth and 3i Atlas, while it's hard to see, I'm not going to do any special graphics to bring this. 3i Atlas is a little arrow that's right above the number 04. You can see it right there above the blue arrow. So the glare of the sun on November 26th will be less. 3i Atlas would be able to be seen. But what they call perihedron would have occurred a month earlier. Here it is back to October 26th. And this is about when perihedron occurs. So now if you take and you see 3i Atlas there just below the 2025, underneath the blue down arrow, which simply just changes the year. If you're on the site live, this is just a screenshot. And you begin to, imaginary, put a pin, a compass pin, in the sun, and at this point begin to turn 3i Atlas to curve to the right. You can see how the Earth is going towards it, and 3i Atlas at that point would be coming towards the Earth. Now back to the other one. Here we are back to November 26th. Instead of it being right there above the 4 and behind the blue arrow, if you just bend it down, it would be in the path of the Earth, approaching Earth, and Earth would be approaching it. So you can extrapolate in your mind how much closer the two would be together. This would be when we can begin to see it. Now, there may be some confusion from people on Earth as to what it's doing and whether it is actually coming to us, because the glare of the sun would have only a few days earlier gone enough away so that we could see it. So let's go one more month into the future. Again, there's November, and now here's December 25th. Notice the position of Earth. It's just under the 52. You see a little blue dot there? There's a red X on top. Now, if you see 3i Atlas is there above, between the 04 and the 52, between the two up arrows, there's a little, looks like a, point of an arrow they have the tail pointed the wrong direction because that's the way the tail is supposed to point. And again, this is projected trajectory. But if it had done the Oberth maneuver and did what's called a slingshot, if you just curve it gently, you will see 3i Atlas is just about at Earth. Now, the accuracy of however it's flying, assuming it is intelligently controlled, they would be steering not for a collision, but probably to go on the outside of Earth, that is between what's the red X there and the blue dot. The X has to do with removing that whole calendar thing. It's not a part of the solar system. It would be between the Earth and the moon. It would just about, if you bend it down, with a compass, or just measure it however you want to measure it, assuming it turned right, it would be on the right side of the Earth, or between the Earth and the orbit of Mars. Now there's Mars at the very, very bottom. And remember, everything goes counterclockwise. So, as 3i Atlas, if this occurred, passes Earth, it would be wise to slingshot again and head what would be down in this picture towards Mars. Now, the Mars, you have to remember, everything's moving. So, in another month, Earth will be gone, but Mars will be approaching the position where Earth used to be. In other words, 3i Atlas would be headed back to Mars. Pretty much no other planets are in the way. There's Venus, but it might go through Venus's orbit. It depends on the speed. But they could go back to Mars and then drop into an orbit around Mars. The point of this illustration is to show, while everybody's talking about this, this is the pictorial representation of how it could work. Now, if it doesn't do anything, that's the trajectory it would be on December 26th. It would be heading for Jupiter. You can see Jupiter right there at the very top. It's a little orange dot. And it would be another opportunity for 3i Atlas to either turn left or right at Jupiter and come back towards Mars if it turned right on a slingshot maneuver, and come back to Mars. If it turns at Earth, it's the same thing. Turns right, it will come back to Mars. The reason Mars is important is because the remote viewers claim that this is a ship that has millions of life forms on it that are in stasis. It is 7 miles in diameter at minimum. It is 33 billion tons. It's a pretty big object. It's not a comet. And, this is where humans are just chicken shits. They don't want to be wrong, so, they speak in every way they can to deny what apparently is the obvious. This is a problem with humans forever. It has caused plane crashes, accidents, building disasters. People just F up all the time. We are not that smart of a species. We want to think we are. We want to reverse everything, reverse engineer everything someone else has done. We're not smart. This was a military orbital maneuver that no one could have imagined. Allegedly, 3i Atlas has 10,000 small objects following it in its tail, supposedly. And it has a coma that's very large of CO2 and cyanide. If it flies close to the Earth, that CO2 and cyanide is going to permeate that atmosphere, and it's going to pretty much exterminate above ground life and any form of life that doesn't have an oxygen filtration system. So anything below ground, and there are extraterrestrials living below ground and in mountains. You can not believe it if you want, but that is the truth. We've known it for years. We've absolutely known it since the 40s when we launched the first atomic bomb. And anything living in the oceans and below and in the oceans would be safe. Then the cyanide would dissipate eventually. There would be dead bodies pretty much all over the planet. And the trees would begin to absorb the CO2 and produce oxygen again. The cyanide would dissipate. With the halt of any kind of industrial operations, no planes, no trains, no automobiles, no factories, the CO2 level of the planet would drop fast. So global warming would sort of stop. In addition, in a flyby, it probably would cause huge tidal waves, volcanic eruptions, probably supervolcanoes would erupt like Yellowstone, and earthquakes. That would mean the volcanic ash from the volcanoes would probably create a nuclear winter type event, or at least a very, very heavy cloud and dust cover for quite a while, cooling the planet. Now, if there's one thing we've learned about the extraterrestrials, the ones that are here, they don't seem to like a lot of heat. They don't live above ground. They live in Antarctica. There's supposedly the tall whites that live in the Nevada mountains. And there's those that live in Mount Shasta and in Denali, Mount Denali in Alaska. These are not conspiracy theories sayings. These are proven, established, known to the government and known to NASA, locations where extraterrestrial life is living. They have set up camp. People think that they're coming here to help us. No. I wouldn't say that. And the reason I wouldn't say that is because humans have just screwed up everything so badly. We're more like cockroaches invading a perfectly good planet than we are to be helped. We're pretty stupid. And we're so stupid we think that everybody else is going to come here and give us, cheat on the test. They're just going to give us everything that we don't understand and don't work for. Well, That's what this guy, this calm scientist, there's been a plethora of them, calm scientist, sleepy explorer, a bunch of YouTube channels that have popped up talking about 3i Atlas, and they all seem to think that the extraterrestrials are going to be friendly. Well, let's see. They come here disguised in a big spaceship, disguised as a comet. They demonstrated that they can control and do things we can't even begin to imagine as humans. Just a 7-mile wide in diameter craft is something to really think about. And then there's an armada of 10,000 other objects following right behind it that are basically dark, no lights on it, like rocks, but they're not rocks because they change in unison along with the thing. These are things that astrophysicists should think about, but they don't. They just want to deny it. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil, there are no aliens. Now, here's a video about the moon. It's a documentary. There's the URL up at the top. There's a title, Moon Mysteries, NASA's Unexplained Files. This is on the so-called Science Channel. They do a pretty good job of documenting things with, actual video proof. It's posted July 15, 2025. Here's the thing, let's sum this up. The moon is hollow. The moon is an artificial satellite. Pretty much nothing would point to anything other than the fact that it's hollow. When they crashed the two lunar modules, two limbs, back onto the moon after lifting off from both moon missions, and they had, geologic sensors there. The moon did not go thud. It rang like a bell. You can't drill very deep into the moon because you hit a hard surface. It's like hitting steel. The crust around the moon is odd. I'm not going to go into all that in depth because, you can go find it anywhere you want on the internet. I'm just going to play just a few minutes of this and go look it up yourself. It's an hour long.
I saw something on the moon many years, 40, 50 years ago, and realized it's very dangerous to publish anything about this. It was terribly controversial. It could ruin a career.
NASA calls these sightings transient lunar phenomena, TLP for short.
TLP could be something other than natural.
There are a lot of transient events on the moon, but I can't comment specifically.
Sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. And if it's artificial, that would belie all the stories about the moon being a dead celestial body.
NASA's official position is that Aristarchus glistens because it contains reflective dust. But Peter Schultz claims the sun wasn't in the right place to reflect off the crater when Apollo 11 saw it.
Aristarchus was in the nighttime when the astronauts from Apollo 11 went over it. So it can't be a glint off the sun. It had to be something else. It really is a mystery.
Okay, so here we have again when people say things like there's aliens, there's other things. It evokes the fear response in humans. Like, oh my God, there can't be anything else but us. There can't be anything else smarter than us. And here we come with all the alien space invader movies and fears. Because that's what it is. They just have to deny it instead of exploring what it really is. The moon is hollow. And it's, 2,159 miles in diameter. And just imagine how many entities could live inside the moon. Well, 3i Atlas is only about 7 miles, a little bit more maybe, across in diameter. And it's alleged to have millions in stasis inside. Think of the city of Los Angeles. How many people would fit in 7 miles of Los Angeles? Yeah, millions. Now, make that three-dimensional into a ball. Yeah, easily millions. So, these aren't things people want to admit. These aren't things scientists want to admit. They can't do that. Like he said, it would be career-ending because everybody laughs at you. This is the problem with human beings. We're fucking stupid. We really are stupid. If we can't understand it, therefore it must not exist. You know, or we make a joke about it. This guy with the calm scientist, he thinks aliens are coming here to give us an upgrade, a genetic upgrade. Yeah, not. You can't upgrade stupid. Humans, as far as we can tell, were the original primates of the planet with genetically enhanced capabilities, allegedly by the Anunnaki thousands of years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago. And there's this alleged ninth planet, Nibiru, which could have been R2-Swan that just recently swung through. Again, another one, very hollow, appears to be a comet. It's not a comet, but nobody really trained on R2-Swan to study it because it wasn't threatening. It wasn't doing things interesting. It was already in the solar system, getting ready to hook and go out. It was going to be very innocuous, it appeared. But yet we don't know. We don't know if spaceships did not launch from it. Because in the darkness, you can't see darkness. You know, you don't launch with all the lights on. It's just a rock coming out of something. You don't know. And the Anunnaki apparently hybrid the monkeys, the Neanderthals, primarily the Neanderthals, with their intelligence so they would be smart enough to be workers. That's very easy to do. I mean, people and creatures who understand genetics know it's basically a cookbook. You can put together anything you want. Genetics can make you dumb. Let's just say the ridiculous side, Down syndrome. Or it can make you a genius. And you really can't tell what is the formula. You know, we know certain genes, like the WTF1 gene, is a gullibility gene. It makes you susceptible to believe stupid crap. It makes you susceptible to like magic. You're sitting there, wow, what was that? Women are more gullible than men. And not everybody has the WTF1 susceptibility gene, which is controlled in the supercredulous in the brain. There are other genes like the MAOA gene, which makes you extremely aggressive. You're like, they call it the warrior gene. And the genes go on and on and on. And you know what? We don't talk about that publicly because it would be, oh, certain people are stupid and others are not. We don't want to do that. Everybody's supposed to be created equal. Well, I'd like to see Mr. Trump's whole genome sequence because there's something's been wrong with him all his life, and he knows it. You can go look up Trump on the internet, and you'll find all kinds of videos and postings about how he's been a problem child from birth, and you know, he crapped his pants and refused to learn how to go to the bathroom. He just wanted to make a problem for his mother. and how he threw an eraser at teachers and they had to send him to a military school and blah, blah, blah. And he's always thought like this stupid kind of thinking. You know, he's had a fascination with Hitler. And there are people then who say, oh, no, it's all fake news. You know, again, with the lies. So go watch this video and you'll get a better idea. Again, there's the URL up at the top. The moon is hollow. The 3i Atlas is hollow. They're coming to be our friends, millions of them. Where are they going to live? Well, they probably will take up residence on Mars first, after they destroy Earth, and then Earth will serve as, like, you know, the quick run to the grocery store for materials and what have you not. If they kill most of life on the planet Earth, there'll be plenty of resources just lying around, you know, cars, metal, gold. You know, gold is valuable for electronics, and they don't care about gold for money. And the Earth will become a panacea of a garden for picking things. There'll be food, you know, food like, you know, what we used to grow orderly, crops like corn and wheat. It'll begin growing wild again. And they'll just be able to come down here and get what they need. They may not want to be close to Earth. Earth is a dangerous place to live. The tectonic plates on Earth make it a dangerous place to set up a long-term civilization. Because there'll be earthquakes. There'll be volcanoes erupting. You know, without the moon, the tidal waves would be just horrific. They would, you know, and when they fly by, when 3i Atlas flies by, only 7 miles wide. It's gonna cause a whole lot of stuff to happen. The tidal waves, the gravitational pull, there will be earthquakes, there will be volcanic eruptions, and Earth will be transformed into something not habitable anymore by above ground animal life. Okay, following up on the moon thing again. This is a compilation from the YouTube channel, The Y-Files, WF. And at least the guy puts his face out there. You see him. He is real, but he has this ridiculous little sidekick goldfish that talks. And if you wouldn't, that would be wacky enough by itself, except for the fact that his documentaries are accurate. And he debunks what can be debunked, but this one is a good one about the moon. Following up on the 3i Atlas story, it's not the first time an artificial satellite has been brought here from elsewhere. And the reason is very simple. The Earth is a dangerous place to live on. The moon was needed to stabilize the Earth, the tides. If you can just imagine a spinning top that you've put water in, it's clear, you'll see the water all will slosh to the equator. And if there isn't something to hold it down and keep it from moving around like a big slosh bucket, the Earth would be a very dangerous place to live because the water would be sloshing everywhere. Don't have to worry about that on an ice-bound planet, but on a planet with open oceans, yeah. So there needed to be something, some moon, something in orbit to stabilize the water and the tectonic plates, because they would also be moving around because of the spinning top of the Earth. The Earth spins on its axis. If the Earth wasn't on a 23-degree tilt, there would be no seasons on the Earth. So all of it comes together. It looks like somebody's been working on the Earth for a long time. And when you stop and think about it, every other celestial body in our solar system that we know of has a moon. Has moon or moons, multiple moons, circling it. Except Earth has one. And that's just odd. But I'll let you be the judge of that. Now, there's the title. There's a URL up at the top. You can stop at the ampersand T equals 100 because it jumps to the first compilation. He puts together a number of his own videos to show, that he's been doing this. And this was put out on July 30th, 2024. Before the 3-Eye Atlas even came to be.
First, we have episode 68, the Hollow Moon Theory. And I'll admit that when I first heard this theory, I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever heard. And then about halfway through the research, I started thinking that the moon is kind of weird. And then by the time I finished the episode, I was fully convinced the moon is the hollow spaceship that was brought here from some part of the galaxy.
It's because it is.
There aren't many episodes of the Y-Files that turn me from skeptic to believer, but this is one of them, and it's one of my favorites. But before we start the episode, we've got a little surprise for you.
Freedom. Liberty.
Okay, enough.
Out the Proselynes, and they lived in an area called Arcadia. And they said they've been here since before there was a moon in the heavens. Now, on the other side of the world, the ancient culture of Tiwanaku in Bolivia also refers to a time when there was no moon. The Tiwanaku claim the moon arrived between 11,500 and 13,000 years ago. If you're into ancient theories as much as I am, you'll recognize that this time coincides perfectly with a period called the Younger Dryas. And all kinds of myths and mysteries are said to have happened during the Younger Dryas, and we'll cover them on this channel. Now, going back to Africa, there are Zulu legends that specifically say the moon is hollow, and living inside is an intelligent race of reptilian extraterrestrials.
Lizard people?
Yup,
Lizard people built the moon!
that's what they believe.
Lizard people are very industrious.
They seem to be. The Zulu believe the moon was put into orbit by two brothers who were gods. And this legend is similar to what the Sumerians believed. The Sumerians also had a legend of two brothers, Enki and Enlil, who were called
Anunnaki.
Yup, Anunnaki, the extraterrestrial gods who created mankind.
Everything is falling into place with this one.
Oh, you ain't seen nothing yet. How about this? The Zulu also believed that before the moon arrived, the climate of the Earth was very different. There were no seasons, and a blanket of thick water vapor covered the entire planet. And we now know that the moon does stabilize our climate. Without the moon's gravity, the Earth's axis would wobble. There would be no consistent seasons, no tides, extreme weather. The presence of the moon is what allows life on Earth to thrive. So, back to the Zulu. The Earth was covered by a thick layer of water vapor, and you could only see the sun through this hazy mist. When the moon was finally placed into orbit, all this water vapor fell at once, and it created a cataclysmic global flood.
Always a flood.
Always. Every time. Every ancient culture has a flood myth, and there's mounting evidence that this did indeed happen during the Younger Dryas. Cultures around the world have myths that are in perfect sync with each other. The coincidences keep piling up. The Zulu legend talks about how the arrival of the moon changed the tides and stabilized the climate. And this is something that wasn't understood by science until the past 100 years. Yet somehow the ancient Zulu were able to make the connection between the moon and the tides and the seasons. All of these myths and legends, plus strange coincidences and anomalies about...
So, you get the point. go watch the compilation. As you can see, it is 2 hours and 30 minutes. And it's worth every minute of it. He mentions 100 years. How science didn't understand so much until the last 100 years. Think about it. There are people here alive on the planet who have seen mankind at its dumbest, and now at this point, 2025, they're still just as dumb. Still just as dumb. People still believe crap rather than science. And they've taken over the politics of the planet. I don't know how to say it. The Republicans are about as dumb can be. They don't want to understand anything because, you know what? I think genetically, they're unable. Not being a Republican doesn't make you unable. It's just that you gravitate towards those who are as dumb as you are because you don't want to hang out with the smart kids.
The interstellar object NASA's been tracking, 3I Atlas, is roughly the size of Manhattan and has been displaying several unusual movements and features which kind of defy typical behavior of comets. It's even catching the attention of some military analysts. So what does this mean for all of us here on Earth? And what can this mysterious object tell us about what's outside our own solar system? Let's ask physics professor at the City College of New York, and he's a New York Times best-selling author of Quantum Supremacy, Michio Kaku. So this mystery object has been added to the International Asteroid Warning Network. That's the first interstellar object ever to make that list. So I got to ask you, what the heck is 3I Atlas, and why the clouds of mystery around it? NASA's like tight-lipped.
Or comet will be whizzing around our sun, and if it picks up extra energy on its flyby, that would clinch it. That means there's extraterrestrial intelligence involved. So watch for it. On October 30th, starting then, we're going to track it to see whether it gets an extra boost of energy. If so, it means we are being visited. There's something called the Oberth effect. The Oberth effect says that if you were to whip around the sun, you would pick up extra energy in the process. So we're going to watch for it. The energy in must equal the energy out, according to the ordinary theory. But if that's not true, if there's more energy going out than in, it means that there's energy boost coming from whipping around the sun, and that requires intelligence. And so that's one acid test that we can make. Watch for it starting this week. We're going to begin to monitor and see whether or not it picks up extra energy as it whips around the sun.
Well, I don't know what to say, but this was real watered down. And this is what's going on right now, maybe. This is October 27th posted, and they slightly overlapped, but this is from Mr. Sleepy Scientist. Not trustworthy, doesn't show his face, don't know who it is.
25 is exactly what you'd expect during
AI
a year
reader.
when 3 green comets happen to be active simultaneously. That's possible. That's the null hypothesis. That's what Occam's razor, the principle that simpler explanations are usually correct, would favour. But Occam's razor cuts both ways. If you're an
And
extraterrestrial
this is a
civilization,
wordy.
they saw it over Moscow first. 6:30 in the morning, October 27th, 2025. A green fireball tearing through the pre-dawn sky, fragmenting, disintegrating into emerald sparks above sleeping cities. Istra, Friar Zeno, Ramenskoye, Lyubertsy, Krasnogorsk, Different districts, same phenomenon. Within hours, Budapest reported the same thing.
That's
when
just
social media
animation
exploded.
footage.
Not with questions, but with a single chilling theory. The probes are already here. You know 3i Atlas. You know the debates, the 8 anomalies, the mothership hypothesis that refuses to die. But what you don't know, what nobody could have predicted, is that while scientists tracked the main object as it disappeared behind the sun on October 21st, something else started happening. Green objects, dozens of them, began appearing in Earth's atmosphere. Not meteors, not space debris. Objects that match no known pattern, arriving with clockwork precision as 3i Atlas reached the one moment when it had maximum power, maximum speed, and complete invisibility from every telescope.
And there's the link up at the top there. You're welcome to go listen to this. It's just a collection of graphics. There is no proof graphics. There's no documentary graphics or video. This is an AI reading copy that either an AI wrote or someone else wrote. It is a repetitive channel. It is Mr. Calm Scientist. It's designed to hypnotize you and put you to sleep and keep you watching or keep it running for 2 hours 28 minutes. So that on YouTube, if you're on YouTube, the YouTube browser or Chrome browser, ads will keep popping up, and this channel will be getting paid every time those ads pop up. So it doesn't matter what they say. This channel, you can go back and look at any of the previous videos, and they're all saying pretty much the same thing. Repetitive, 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 past the first few minutes. Now, it's 1 minute in, and that's pretty close to all the new news you're going to hear from him. If it goes to 5 minutes after that, it starts repeating. So, not that 3i Atlas is not here, not that the meteors, the green meteors, aren't falling. They seem to have gone in the direction to select Russia, because they land in Siberia where there is nobody, so we don't know what they are. I wouldn't say they're anything good. And you know what's irritating is that humans are just fucking stupid. They're like, oh, they're friendly. No, stupid. They're not friendly. If they're friendly, they would have called on the phone. No, literally. They would have rung the doorbell and said, hi, we're coming to visit. They would have said, oh, we're bringing our 10-mile wide Armada mothership to your solar system, and we're going to set up shop on Mars and then run back and forth to Earth for supplies. Of course, the answer would have been no. The real thing that's going on is somebody needed a place to live, and Earth is prime cosmic real estate. So, I didn't really want to live to see this. Pretty old now, and I've seen Sputnik, and now I see this. The addition of which is stupid. Stupidity of man. He screamed out into the void of God knows where, hey, we're over here, this is what we are, blah, blah, blah. And, You have to understand, every time you look into the sky, you're looking back in time. So those stars you see, they may not all be there. Some of them may have supernovaed, and the supernova event, the light of the event, the actual event, has not reached us yet. Something that would occur on Alpha Centaurus, the closest star to us, it takes 4.7 years at the speed of light to see. So when you look at Alpha Centaurus, you're looking at it from 4.7 years ago, not today. And that's what people don't understand. Now, they say this thing, 3I Atlas, has been traveling for millions of years, and that's wrong. That's just wrong. Nobody takes into account there are wormholes. You know, I guess what they call the Einstein-Rosen bridge. There are wormholes, and my bet is 3I Atlas came through a wormhole. It maybe came through a wormhole from a direction from where it came, you know. There are wormholes at the edge of our solar system. We don't know where they are. We may stumble upon one and then fall into it. Until it's mapped, we don't know exactly where they are. We know there's one, at least the end of one, at Skinwalker Ranch in Utah. We've seen ships come out of it from nowhere and go disappear in through it. We've seen ships go through the mesa. There's a flat mountain that's there. We know there's something in it. So you can't talk about space-time continuum without talking about wormholes. Now, this 3I Atlas is at the lead. It's about probably 10 miles wide, because when it got hit by 3 solar storms, coronal mass ejections, instead of them pushing it off course or onto a different course, it just absorbed that energy and kept right on going the direction it was going. So either we've misunderestimated its mass, which we have, because we don't know how big it is. But, you know, initial estimates were that it was 12 miles in diameter. Then they downsized it. So now people say, well, from 800 meters to 5, kilometers. Well, I'm sticking with the 12 miles, which is, substantial. Remote viewers have allegedly gone to it and inside of it. They can't stop that. The remote viewers are not that inaccurate. We've used them to see places. People used to call them ESP, people with ESP. People have, found submarines, ships, lost planes, lost people by remote viewing, by extrasensory perception. So they say it's hollow. It's full of millions of life forms in stasis. And now it appears it is pulling an Oberth maneuver. It's slowed down, where you get drawn into the gravitational pull of the sun. And then you're just about, into the pull. You fire your propulsion hard, and instead of you immediately getting away, it's the slingshot effect, where the gravity pulls you and it turns you for a minute until it loses the pull on you, and you slingshot out, headed to somewhere that you hopefully had planned on where you want it to go. Since it's in retrograde, the slingshot will point it straight at Earth. Now, here's a video, another one in a long line of these zany 3i Atlas speeches by who knows who, because nobody shows their face. This one's called the Sleepy Science Stories. Here's the date. It was posted October 29th. And it's another one talking about perihelion and everything that 3i Atlas is doing that's not normal. But this one does make a salient point that Earth has to consider also. 3i Atlas flew within 12 miles of Mars. Okay, big deal, you think? Yeah, except it's carrying a huge coma of CO2 and cyanide, which spreads out for pretty much millions of kilometers. And so Mars got its first dose of CO2 and cyanide. Mars doesn't have an atmosphere very much. So all of that CO2 and cyanide is now bathed in Mars. As Mars rotated and as Mars proceeded, forward, while 3i Atlas passed it in retrograde, it pretty much poisoned the whole atmosphere of space. Now, on Mars, this video does speak about some of what we're going to find out if and when this next SpaceX probe that lands on Mars finds in the soil. And what about Earth? As you saw, even if 3i Atlas does not do an Oberth maneuver and turn towards Earth, Earth's going to fly through the very same trail, because that doesn't dissipate. It stays around for quite a while in space. It's been spewing water and CO2 and cyanide for quite a while. Normally, comets don't fly in the plane of the ecliptic. That's in the same plane that planets orbit the sun. This one did. This one is. This one does. That means Earth's atmosphere is going to be bombarded by CO2 and cyanide. Earth's atmosphere is not a closed terrarium. There is no dome to protect it from anything from space, whether it be asteroids, meteors, or gas. Now, normally space is inert. There's no gas out there that matters. This time, there is. So there's the URL up at the top. This is what people should be talking about. And instead of how amazed they are that 3i Atlas is not following the norms of a comet. It just sprayed Earth with raid. Earth's path with raid. We haven't so far put two and two together.
Mars is no longer the planet it was. In September, 2 weeks ago, something passed within 20-9 million kilometers of the red planet with surgical precision, and it left something behind. Not a crater, not a scar you could see from orbit, something far more subtle and potentially far more significant. For months, Cyanide Atlas, an interstellar visitor from beyond our solar system, has been spraying 140 Zen-4 metric tons of water into space every single hour. Along with that water, refined nickel at 4.6 grams per second, hydrogen cyanide ramping exponentially to over 60 grams per second, and ionized plasma streaming behind it like a chemical banner. On October 3rd, 2020 Gen 5, Mars flew directly through that banner. Multiple orbiters watched it happen. The chemistry is verifiable. The numbers are published. What nobody's talking about yet is what happens next. Because in 14 months, SpaceX is sending autonomous robots to dig into Martian soil, and they're going to find exactly what this comet left behind. Before you dismiss this as science fiction, I want you to consider something. Everything I'm about to tell you is built on published scientific data, verified observations, and mission timelines that are already locked in. This isn't speculation about distant possibilities. This is documentation of what is happening right now on a schedule you can mark on your calendar. If you're watching this, you're early to a story that will define the next chapter of Mars exploration. Hit that like button if you're ready to connect some dots.
So, unfortunately, this guy goes on, or this channel goes on, in this case, for 1 hour and 45 minutes. Only in the first few minutes do these channels say anything relevant. Then the rest is progressively towards bullshit. He's talking about Mars. Did you forget about Earth? Because Earth's going to fly through the same trail. Except, guess what? We're going to fly through it a lot longer. Maybe 6 months to a year as we circle the sun counterclockwise. We're going to be in the trail of what 3i Atlas left behind, whether it turns towards Earth or not. If it turns towards Earth, we can add possibly tidal waves, earthquakes, and volcanic eruptions due to the gravitational disruption and pull of it. If it passes within 12 miles of Earth, between the moon and the sun, well, that will be apocalyptic. Mars doesn't matter. And by the way, if it turns, and we're still waiting to see, if it turns and it comes between Earth and the moon or somewhere in that direction, where does it end up then? Oh, guess what? Back at Mars. Now, here he begins to talk about why the flyby, that close flyby, is important. Now remember, 3i Atlas is moving in retrograde. It's going against the rotation of the planets in the solar system. And it's inside at this point, the orbit of Mars. Which means Mars is on the outside, and then as it comes through its orbit, it's going to go through the tail of what 3i Atlas left, And Earth coming around is on the inside of 3i Atlas, and that means Earth is going to get a continuous spray of CO2 and cyanide for up to a year. It isn't what's happening on Mars that's important. It's what's going to happen to Earth. Are we clueless? Yep, absolutely. We're clueless. We have just been sprayed with a can of Raid that's sitting there, and we're about to go into the mist that's still sitting there. There's not really a lot of wind. They talk about the solar wind. There's not really a lot of wind that's going to blow that away.
A moment. That is a fire hose running at full blast continuously for weeks, and it wasn't slowing down. By mid-10th September, as Cyanide Atlas approached its October 3rd perihelion, the point in its orbit where it would be closest to the Sun, that water production had remained constant. Chapter 2, Anomalous Emissions. Cyanide and nickel, but something else was accelerating. The Keck Observatory in Hawaii had been conducting spectroscopic observations throughout September, and they detected something that made planetary scientists take notice. Hydrogen cyanide HCN emissions were increasing exponentially. In late August, measurements showed HCN production at approximately 17.6 grams per second. By September 15th, that had climbed to 30 Gen 4 grams per second. By September 20 Gen 8, just 5 days before the Mars encounter, the rate had reached 50 Gen 2 grams per second. The trend line was clear. As Cyanide Atlas approached perihelion, cyanide production was doubling roughly every 2 weeks. Extrapolating that curve forward to the October 3rd encounter date put cyanide output somewhere between 60 and 70 grams per second at the moment Mars passed through its chemical wake. Then there is the nickel. This is where the story moves from unusual to genuinely anomalous. On September 20 Gen 1st, Keck detected emission lines in the Comet spectrum corresponding to ionized nickel, specifically Nijau at 360 Gen 2 nanometers. That by itself isn't extraordinary. Several comets have shown trace metal emissions when they get close enough to the Sun for intense sublimation. What made this different was the absence of iron. In nature, nickel and iron are inseparable siblings. They form together in stellar nucleosynthesis. They condense together in the cooling disks around young stars. They alloy together in planetary cores and meteorites. The cosmic abundance ratio of iron to nickel is roughly 18:1. You simply don't find one without the other in any natural sample from space. Yet Cyanide Atlas was emitting nickel without corresponding iron lines.
So, this is how you also know this is a AI text-to-speech reader. It thinks the symbol 3 is either Zen or Sin. So it thinks it's a Z, which is also called Zen, or the number 3 it thinks is Zen or Sin. So it's calling it Cyanide Atlas. That's evidence that it's an AI text-to-speech reader. It's making the point, as I said, that 3i Atlas is spewing a huge trail of chemical that's going to just be hanging around there for a while as Earth comes into it and moves through it. Remember, this is three-dimensional. It's going to get Mars on the left, looking down, and it's going to get the Earth on the right, looking down on the solar system. Except Earth's going to get that chemical trail far longer. Actually, they're both going to get it for quite a while. And I encourage you, in this case, to go listen to this entire video. There's the URL up at the top. You can stop at the ampersand t = 180 if you want to hear everything he has to say, because this is basically jumping into it 3 minutes into what he's talking about. And after this, it's going to get wordy. He's going to start talking about a whole lot of crap, because the goal of these videos is to get views and people to stick around for, this case, 1 hour and 41 minutes, while YouTube plays ads every now and then, upon which the channel gets paid for every ad that plays and plays through to the end. And this is only 5 minutes in, as you can see there. Now, nobody knows who Sleepy Science Stories is. Sleepy Science Stories, the Calm Scientist, the Sleepy Explorer. They're all this British voice AI. And someone's making a big buck off of this, because as you can see from the views, most people are watching this tied to YouTube and YouTube's ads. The real story is it's poisoning the solar system big time, and we're about to fly through it. Now, if it turns right and does an Oberth maneuver past Earth, even if it doesn't cause gravitational pull, it's gonna give Earth a full year's and more dose of CO2 and cyanide if it doesn't Oberth maneuver past Earth. Turns right again, at which point it will arrive pretty much back at Mars. Back in Mars orbit, as Mars comes around to meet it. This is how wide that tail is spread, and how far it's flinging stuff, debris. I say it's targeted. People try to explain it as a naturally occurring phenomenon. It's not just a comet. It does too many things that are indicating an industrial process. I mean, he says that here. A few other people have said it. And it's in the plane of the ecliptic. That's important, because the sustained effect of flying through it, being caught in its spray, is a lot different than the previous comets that have gone through. They've gone through the plane of the ecliptic, and negligible effect, and what's behind them is really simple water vapor, sublimated ice. But in this case, 3i Atlas is carrying a toxic soup of stuff. And you have to go listen to this video to tell what's likely to happen behind it. In essence, 3i Atlas has terraformed Mars. It'll take a little while, but stuff's gonna be happening on Mars. Now, it would be convenient if it would hook back past Earth and go back to Mars, because by the time it gets there, you know, Mars will start cooking and be ready for probably habitation. There was a laser beam. I don't know if you call it a light, but it was concentrated energy aimed straight at Mars as it flew by. A sustained beam. All that needs to be done is to activate the core of Mars again. Heat it up so that it begins to create a stronger magnetic field once again. Even if 3I Atlas was to continue on to Jupiter, it's going to come so close to Jupiter, an Oberth maneuver could happen again. It could turn left, right, or hook around Jupiter and slingshot back into the solar system, this time not in retrograde, but in a direction of orbital mechanics for our solar system. You know, it doesn't do any good to keep going over the history of this. It appeared July 1st, or we discovered it July 1st. People say it's millions of years old. Again, I say it came through a wormhole, and it's not that old.